What's up, guys? Tim Ruswick here, and I recently did an interview with Tony Chan from Game Dev Loadout podcast, and he was kind enough to let me record the video for you in its entirety. It's about 30 minutes long, and we were able to go through an interview. I share a lot of personal stuff. I share a lot of stuff ranging from like my depression to some of my top tips for game development and all that stuff. And I thought I would share it with you guys because you're awesome. So what I recommend is you watch the following video. It's my interview. It's probably not up yet, but it will be soon. But in the meantime, after you're done with the video, you can check out his podcast. I have a link for you down below. But until then, enjoy the interview.
What's up, Game Devs? T-Chan here, and welcome to episode 100 of Game Dev Loadout, where I chat with today's most experienced game developers 7 days a week. We will learn about their background, the challenges they face, and the tools they use to reach success. And today's featured guest is Tim Ruswick. Am I pronouncing that right?
Ruswick? Yeah, same thing. Everybody gets it wrong. It's all good.
All right. Tim Ruswick. All right, Tim, it is go time. Are you ready?
I am ready. Let's do this.
Awesome. He is the founder of Game Dev Underground, which is a marketing and connection platform for any game developers to engage with one another and get their game out to the masses. He also does YouTube videos and blogging to give us game devs tips and advice to keep pushing forward. So thank you for that, Tim. Okay. Go ahead and give us a bit about your personal life and how you got started in the game industry.
So I, like many other people, sat down with an Xbox one day. My first game was Halo 1. When I played that game, it inspired me to new levels. Like, seriously, playing through that game was like eye-opening into a whole world of storytelling and inspiration and all kinds of stuff. And after I played that game, at the ending of the credits, I sat down like in silence, like wondering what to do with my life because the game was over. And I was like, you know what? I have to make games. This is what I got to do. I got to make games. And my life has been filled with plenty of obstacles since then. And there's been ins and outs. And I've worked on game development and I've quit. And I've worked on game development and I quit. But I think that was the pivotal moment when I knew for eternity that I had to work on games. And that's the thing that inspired me to get started, for sure.
That's awesome that Halo 1 was the game that inspired you. And Halo 1 was a great game. And I think people consider it like one of the best games, especially for first-person shooters.
No, totally. Not only was it a great shooter, but I think that inspired me the most is like the I don't want to spoil the game for you guys, but there is a twist in the game that is just ridiculous. And it's not marketed. It wasn't in any trailers. It's not on the box art. There's a whole like enemy that you just encounter that just it was nowhere, and for that kind of thing to happen in a game was just like, what? Like, I thought, I didn't know games could be that story detailed and in depth and crazy and epic sci-fi storytelling. It was just amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely a classic that people should play.
For sure.
Now let's break it down. What do you consider your main area of expertise?
Oh, that's a hard one. I am a jack of all trades, for sure. I think the single thing that I've kind of done is everything. I would say that I tend to be really good at teaching and helping people. That's kind of why I ended up making the YouTube videos and blogs and stuff. But as far as game development goes, I would say the programming end is probably my strong suit.
Oh yeah, see, like you say, now you do instructing now or consulting. What do you think a lot of people don't know about when it comes to game development that they should know about?
That's a big topic too. We could talk for days on that one. I think the main thing when beginners start is they start on a scope that's way too big. They start on a massive game that's way too big for them, and they don't focus enough on the user experience. They focus on the features when they need to focus on one coherent narrative throughout the whole game. I think that's what Halo did fantastic, and that's one of the reasons that inspired me. And I did run a marketing company for a few years, and the big thing in marketing is always like, getting people emotionally charged and communicating the benefits and what's awesome about the product. And I think there's a lot of games that don't properly communicate what is awesome about them, at least in the first few minutes of playing or whatever. And it's something that I think a lot of people could do better, and I think they would see a lot of improvement in their game if they did.
Yeah, well, what tips would you give people to get people emotionally invested into? I mean, to get the users emotionally invested into their game. What kind of tips can you give game devs on that?
Okay, the number one tip I would say for any game ever is to start with a wow, right? Like start with something that's awesome. Start with a pivotal moment, and it doesn't have to be in mechanics. It doesn't have to be in. It could be in whatever. It can be with story, like some epic, universe-shattering thing that just happened in the universe, or it can be you just acquired this epic superpower power up, but now it gets taken away by your greatest enemy or something. Just start with something that like wows people. And that's a really good way to build a great game, because at that point it's like, remember, most people don't play all the way through most games, so the first 10 minutes or so of the game is the most important part of the game, because that's the part that most people play, and I think it's one of the most overlooked parts.
Yeah, having that wow moment, it's I heard is really crucial.
Totally,
Because,
totally,
like you
totally.
say, when they go to like PAX or conference, they only have a limited time of playing. So it's important to have that wow moment into that demo when people play it.
Absolutely. It's even more critical in places like that because there's so much distraction. There's so many other games they can play. There's people walking by. There's all kinds of stuff happening, and like, yeah, you gotta make sure that it really grabs people in right away.
Now, aside from like the attention grab from for users, what other common mistakes, even at a pro level, that game devs make when developing games?
Like, I think the scope is a big problem. I think the not starting with the experience is a big problem. And I think one of the issues that I see a lot too, especially with solo devs, is lack of a coherent whole. So like, I see a lot of people that are really good at programming, but they're not so great at art, or vice versa, or whatever. And you end up with pieces that are really good, but there's no coherent whole. There's no coherent thing that's there. Like when I tell people to tell a great story, right? I don't actually mean narrative. It can be narrative. I don't actually mean like events in the game world. Us telling the right story can be with your art style. It can be with the things that you do and have the player experience. It's just emotionally grabbing them, and I think a lot of people, they focus too much on features and they forget about the experience and stuff like that, you know.
So, would you suggest like how can they find that wow moment? Or I guess the only way to know that wow moment is to test it out on users. Like, what do you suggest they use or do to get that wow factor in? Like, how would they know if that's a wow moment?
I think it's going to highly depend on other people. The problem when you're developing solo is that you lose clarity real quick, and if you're working on something and like you're into it a lot, and you create something that you think is cool, there's no real way to tell until you watch people play through it. And I would suggest that you have people play your game, but you don't tell them what to do or how it is or how it works or anything like that. You just watch them play and you don't give them any help. And
Interesting.
that will tell you more about everything that you need to do than anything else will. Like, unfortunately, the first time I did this on live stream with Twitch, and I had a Twitch streamer play my game, and they couldn't figure out the controls. And I had to watch them in front of 100 people struggle with the controls, and then the everything was all weird. And I was just like, wow, if I would have just watched some single person play my game before I did this, like, it would have helped so much, you know. And you learn a lot because people, they'll do things you don't expect. They'll go the wrong ways. They'll do all kinds of weird stuff, and you just got to be prepared for it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And now, overall, what are your key principles for better game development? Like to streamline the development process to avoid major mistakes. What are your key principles for that?
I would probably say I have probably three primary key principles for any game. And these are super general. They're not specific because I think at the tactical level, there's a lot of stuff you can go through. But I would say the key principles are probably focus on the experience, which we talked about, tell a great story, which goes beyond just narrative, right? And then start with the wow. I think if you do those three things, you're going to make a fantastic game. Like, no matter what you build, if you do those things in a compelling way, it's going to be awesome.
Oh yeah. Now let's take this on a more personal level, you know, because creating a game can be very long and difficult, and I'm pretty sure you had some bad moments. What is the worst moment of your career? Like that one moment that's still vivid in your mind? Be very detailed and give us that story.
Uh, I would have to say it's gonna get dark. You ready for this? You're gonna get deep.
Let's do it. Come on, we here to listen.
All right. I would say it was a really bad struggle with depression. Um, and I think it started because I've always been a little entrepreneurial. I've never really held a job. I've always been working on my own companies, working on my freelance work, doing all that kind of stuff. And I think it started with money issues. I didn't have enough money. I couldn't pay my bills. And I was working on my games on the side, and like I had worked on some of these projects for so long, and I hadn't showed people that I was tired of it. I didn't want to do it anymore. And then I remember one specific day where I had to make a choice between feeding me or feeding my dog, and that was like the ultimate low. That was something that was ridiculously hard to cope with, especially since I chose my dog. And I had to go hungry that day. And I they seemed like they would just kept getting worse. And I quit my games for a while, and I quit doing everything really. I quit getting out of bed. And it was really bad. And I think the thing that got me out of it was to decide to take some time away from doing the things that had consumed my life, and to work on myself and improve myself, and get out and see nature and hang out with people. And I think one of the most valuable lessons that I learned during that struggle was the fact that burnout is a very real thing. Burnout is real, but also that downtime is productive. I grew up thinking that if I wasn't working 24/7, that there was something wrong with me, and I always felt guilty if I wasn't working. And over time, this just created such a massive anxiety load of like always be working, but then I didn't know what to work on, and I was creatively drained, and I was broke, and it was just a big thing that like kind of came to a head at that point. And learning that downtime is productive, learning how to live a balanced life, balance game development with my workload, with my personal life, I think was one of the big takeaways. And it's something that I think a lot of programmers struggle with a lot, especially game developers in general. We tend to be obsessive about our creations, and anything in excess is bad. Even game development, anything in excess can get out of hand. So I'm glad I got out of it, and I'm glad I could be here today to kind of share it.
Yeah, I'm glad you are sharing it, and you are absolutely right about that downtime, because, like you say, too much access of, I guess, overworking yourself for the game you're trying to create. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for your mind or for your body. And like you said, when you take a downtime, you sometimes get like that big fresh of air. You're just relaxing. You get to think on your own, and you get to invest time for yourself, and that's so important.
Yeah, and I spent like 6 months not looking at any project, but by the end of that 6 months, I was so creatively filled with like ideas, and I wanted to start. I couldn't wait to jump back in. Like I needed that time off to create something great. Like had I tried to keep working the hours that I was working and doing the things I was doing and putting that stress on my body, I wouldn't have created anything worthwhile. So I think downtime is definitely a big key factor.
Now, for those game devs that like having a hard time trying to back away from their project, and what can you tell them to persuade them or to encourage them to take that downtime from their game?
You got to do it anyway. You gotta. Okay. Having work-life balance requires discipline, right? And I think for me, I never really had discipline growing up. I always just did what I felt like doing. And a lot of game developers are in that boat still. Like they do things that they feel like doing. But the problem is you can't build a business or something on just doing what you feel like. Sometimes it requires discipline, and sometimes the discipline is not just to work when you don't want to work. Sometimes the discipline is don't work when you want to work, and it's something that you got to train yourself to, and you really got to make yourself do it. Like I make myself take one day off a week in the middle of the week every Wednesday, and it's been massively productive for me because I don't worry about any emails. I don't worry about anything to do with any of that stuff. It's pretty awesome, and I think anybody would love to do. I think you learn to love your time off, so it's awesome.
Yeah, game devs, we want to encourage you to take that time off, and yeah, like you say, force yourself to take that time off. And we know it's difficult, but you just gotta find a way to do it. Just find a way to do it, and you will like be really grateful once you do it because you get that big fresh air when you
And I
finally
would
take that break.
schedule it too if you can, because
Oh yeah,
like sometimes, you're in the middle of a project, you're halfway done with the engine part, you just want to keep powering through, you want to keep going. Sometimes quitting in like when you're in that mode and you're halfway done with something is the best way to quit, because when you come back to it, it's like it's motivating to start again because you know what you need to do, it's already there, you already have momentum. Quitting after you complete something could be like, okay, now you don't want to start the next thing, and it's I found that particularly useful in larger programming projects.
yeah. Schedule your time off. That's great advice. Now let's take that on a positive note. What is the best investment you've made? And it could be investment of money, time, or energy. And how did you decide to make that investment? Aside from the downtime you had, like what's another great investment you've made for yourself?
Money, time, or energy? I would say, honestly, one of the best investments that I made was in a tool called Construct 2 for game development. It's a really popular engine. Now, I've always been a programmer my entire life, and for a long time, I looked down on these game-making tools, right? Like, I thought, oh, those aren't for real programmers. Those tools are for people that, they don't know how to program cool stuff like I did. But what I realized was like, oh my God, I can make a platformer in 10 minutes by just copying and pasting and moving stuff and clicking, versus me as a programmer that would take me 2 days. And so I think that really opened my eyes, and it made me like realize that games are the important thing, right? Like you shouldn't focus on building the technology. It's outcome over output. Like you don't worry about the things that you output, worry about the things that you finish at the end of the day. And that tool massively increased my ability to make games and prototype and do stuff. And it really changed the way of me thinking about, I want to program this thing to, I want to make this thing. And that was a big shift for me.
Ooh, nice. Construct 2. I would definitely link that up. Now, the game industry is growing and it's booming. What is the one thing you are most excited about today?
I think a lot of people would say VR. I'm a little skeptical of VR in game development. I think the future for mobile development is really exciting. I think the last couple of years, as the technology's been really new, we've been seeing a lot of single mechanic mobile games. That's been the craze. But we're starting to see now the rise of more complex mobile games. And I think mobile is going to take a similar path that as some of these handheld game consoles have taken over the years. It started out really simple with like Tetris and stuff, but it moved on to fully 3D, like crazy games. Like you can get Grand Theft Auto on your phone now. That's insane to me. That you can play Grand Theft Auto on a phone. So I'm really excited for the future of mobile games because the technology's there, but there are going to be developers that just take the touchscreen input method to a whole nother level and take the stop and go nature of the play of mobile games to a whole nother level. And I'm excited to see what that brings.
Do you think mobile gaming is going to take VR and AR to the mainstream? Because, like Pokemon Go kind of uses
definitely.
AR.
Yeah. Pokemon Go, I think, is a perfect example. AR, absolutely. The phone is the forefront. VR is a little... I tried the Samsung one. It was massive at GDC. There was VR stuff everywhere. I don't know. I feel like that technology is still a couple years off, and I don't know. I think there's a big risk that could end up being like 3D TVs. Like everybody thinks it's awesome, and then it just kind of loses its luster.
Yeah. I hope not.
I hope not. I mean, the implications of the technology are awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I know a guy that's working on VR games for recovery for like knee problems and stuff. He's working on he's trying to integrate with AR and VR to make games that help with physical therapy and help people recover from like knee injuries. And that is awesome to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's a whole nother level of game development. But there's still a lot of key problems with the technology, so I don't know. But AR, absolutely, I think that's going to be a big part of the future.
Awesome. Don't forget Game Devs. You can check out GameDevLoadout.com for all the show notes. You can also subscribe to my email list to get tips and updates. And now we have reached crunch time, the phase that game devs dread, but we are here to overcome it. Basically, Tim, I will ask you quick questions, and you'll be giving us a ton of valuable information in return. Are you ready to crush it and release this show?
I think I am. Let's do it.
Yes. What was holding you back from becoming a game developer?
I think the thing that held me back for a long time was shiny object syndrome. Jumping from thing to thing, different project to different project, not finishing anything.
What's a personal habit that contributes to your success?
Consistency. I know that kind of clashes with taking time off, but you got to balance the two, but you got to be consistent.
What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
Be consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the main thing of the show. Be consistent. How has a failure set you up for later success?
I think failures are success. I think failure is a stepping stone to success. I think people should fail faster because it teaches you a lot.
Yeah, make mistakes faster. You're right. Do you have a particular favorite failure that happened to you that you can remember?
I would say failing miserably with a client that hired me to market their game, and we got 0 sales, and they paid me a lot of money to do that.
Oh,
that was fun because not only did I fail in public, I failed with a client, I failed with a bunch of other stuff, and we made it okay. It turned out okay in the end because their next game was a hit. But yeah, that was that was fun.
What exactly did you do to bounce back? I guess, or can we even ask that?
Well, to be honest, I saw some red flags. There wasn't enough testing with the game. There wasn't enough stuff, but I decided to go ahead and market it anyway because they had begged me to do it, and I took on the project and went back to the drawing board after that, kind of retooled some things, retweaked some things. We turned it into a different game, really, because of there was a lot of stuff to change. But it ended up working out really well. It's just it needed a lot of feedback from other people. It needed a lot of input. It needed a lot of TLC, and I think it worked out.
Ooh, awesome! Now, share an internet resource we game devs should use.
I'm a little biased on this one, but I think I would have to say Game Dev Underground, GDU.io.
No, actually, seeing your website is awesome, and it has all the resources for the tools. Like you have tools for animation, tools for programming, tools for art.
Yeah,
Definitely.
There's task lists there.
Awesome.
There's marketing tools that'll help you keep track of your stats and stuff. There's all kinds of links and resources. There's awesome blog. There's all my video stuff. Like I'm trying to make it like the #1 spot for resources and stuff. So
yeah, tell them what kind of blogs you do. 'Cause I saw the last blog and you were giving tips on, I believe, to finish your game.
Yeah. All of my stuff is really rangy, but generally it's a lot of the general concepts in game development. It's a lot of self-improvement stuff. It's a lot of how to deal with the task of game development without actually getting technical on how to make a game. And I think that's a lot of stuff that we're missing, right? Because you can Google or you can go on YouTube these days and find any kind of tutorial for any kind of engine out there. My stuff is a lot more general. It's overarching. It's business. It's marketing. It's programming best practices for the business world or for your life, so it's more general.
Definitely check that out, Game Devs. And now this next question is a bit of a doozy, so take your time if you need to. Imagine you woke up the next morning in a brand new world and you knew no one. You still have all the experience and knowledge you currently have today. Your food and shelter is taken care of and you have a laptop. What would you do step by step on the path to become a great game developer?
If all of my bills were paid, the first thing that I would do is I would go online, meet a bunch of people, connect with them. Second thing I would do is start in the game. And I say that very seriously because I think people are the key to success, no matter what you do. I've made plenty of games alone. I know a lot of people that have made games by themselves, but I think no one succeeds alone in the fact that other people are always required for your success. You need them to test, you need them to help you, they need idea generation, inspiration, motivation, business contacts, help with marketing. People are so critical to game development. So I think I would start with the people and then I would work on my next hit game idea.
Yeah, people are so important, and they will help you take your game to the next level.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Now we have reached the end. Go ahead and give a parting piece of guidance and how we can connect with you.
I would say my parting piece of guidance is to keep going no matter what. If you got to take some time off, take some time off. But when you're ready, come back and be consistent at it. Do it daily if you can. Even if it's 10 minutes a day, just do it daily. You'll get through it. Focus on finishing. Focus on the end product. Don't focus on the little pieces that get in the way. Like, just keep your eye on the goal and keep your eye on the next milestone, and I think you'll get it. If you guys want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Tim Ruswick. You subscribe on YouTube at Game Dev Underground. And if you go to gdu.io, there's a ton of resources for game developers and all kinds of stuff there.
Then Tim, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, and for that we are truly grateful. Go check him out, Game Devs. He got a ton of good resources online and tips for you to become a better game developer. We look forward to your future work, and until then, we will catch you next time, Tim.
All right, man. See you later.
Awesome, Tim. Really appreciate it. Thank you.